On this episode of the Rich Dad Poor Dad podcast, we have Dennis Hextad, a local Austin guy, south out there. He's the co-founder over at Live Recover, the cart recovery tool powered by humans for e-com. It's perfect for smaller businesses, larger businesses. If you want to get some SMS, scan a cart, text them out. You know where to go. So we dive into his, rich ad he's been running for well over 6 months, generating well over 6 figures, and how simple this ad actually is. We dive into what makes it so good, demoing his actual product and service, kind of give everybody an idea of what to expect there. And on the poor ad side, we dive into, of course, a very poor podcast placement on a podcast. So this one's super juicy. Dennis is a great guy. He provides some awesome value. If you're into, the e-com scene and, have an e-com store, tune into this one because some value bombs are dropped.
I think depending on where you are in your life, a lot of people want to make money, and a lot of people also are find themselves above opportunities sometimes, mentally, right? I have some friends who aren't maybe in the best financial situation, but they also won't go do common jobs. And I'm not saying you need to go work at a store or go do something basic, but there are so many creative ways to make money online or in person. And I think that I don't know. I just think that you shouldn't be above any opportunities. And so even, our business is a, 7-figure a year profitable business, but I still think that my co-founder and probably anybody on our team and myself are still doing side hustles and not full time to the point of getting distracted, but it's
listening to the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast, where we break down the financial principles that rich advertisers are deploying today to turn advertising into profit and get tons of traffic to their websites without killing their cash. These advertisers, agencies, affiliates, brands are responsible for managing over $1 billion a year in ad spend. You'll hear about what's working for them today, their rich ads, and we'll roast their epic failures and crappy ads on the internet with poor ads. Let's get into it.
All right, y'all. We're back in action this fine Friday afternoon with another episode of the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast. Now, today we have an awesome local Austin guest. I'm pretty pumped about it. I've been following this guy on Twitter for a while, and it took me a while to get him on the podcast. But hey, here he is. So we have Dennis Hextad, the co-founder of Live Recover, the cart recovery powered by humans for e-com. So if you're into e-com and you need a ban in cart recovery, this is the best podcast to listen to. So without further hype, Dennis, what's good, man?
Yo, what's going on? I appreciate you letting me on here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. I had to kind of find, track you down a little bit. It took a little while, but hey, we made it.
Twitter DMs are not the best. I wish there was a way for them to resurface them or an easier way to search, because I need bookmarks, because I have so many DMs and Twitter is LinkedIn for me, and I'm not active enough at managing it. But then I scroll back. I'm like, oh wait, I want to do that. I need to talk. I want to talk to that guy or that girl, or we should connect. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad that I followed up, and I apologize.
No, you're good. Yeah. Twitter messages suck. I posted that video of the MacBook with the crazy screens, and that kind of blew up, and my thing's flooded, and it's gotten very hard to keep up with for sure. But sweet, man. So give everybody an idea of kind of who you are. That way people have some context.
Yeah. I mean, I'm Austin local. I'm a co-founder of a text message marketing app for Shopify. Or it started as Shopify only, but now we do BigCommerce, Cratejoy, WooCommerce, Shopify, Magento. My main focus is obviously on SaaS and I guess just creating businesses, but I have a background in e-commerce, and I've been doing that for I guess since MySpace, so since 2007. About 13 years.
Man, I think you're the first one to bring up MySpace on the podcast, and that right there is an achievement itself.
Yeah. Shout out Tom.
The best friend of everybody.
Yes.
Man, that's cool. So how long has Live Recover been around for?
We launched our beta and I think created our LLC in July of 2018. And I think we had our first customer and our first, dollar of revenue, let's just say, in August of 2018. So about 30 months.
Hell yeah, man. That's quite some growth there. And did y'all start off just on Shopify then, or did you, how did y'all kind of, frame that out in the beginning?
Yeah, starting out, we didn't necessarily Shopify was the easiest place to start. Obviously, it wasn't the only place to start. There's WooCommerce and all these other ones, but Shopify had the best app ecosystem. And so for us, it kind of was like the most obvious place. And it turned out to be, the right bet to make. But now as we've grown, we've definitely tried to, start diversifying off Shopify just to, spread our reach, I guess.
That's exciting, man. Heck yeah. Yeah, I know when it comes to developing these apps, it's got to be a mess sometimes to let them speak to these platforms because they're all so different. I would imagine it's probably a mess on the engineering side. But then again, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not too sure there.
Yeah, I would say I don't 100% know because I'm not writing our code either. Shout out my CTO and our engineers because they're great. But, it did take us I would say about 8 months we basically rebuilt our platform. Platform one that's up kind of publicly just services Shopify. Now, if you go, it'll ask you what platform you want to use, right? So we did have to rebuild everything, but I think that's just part of staying alive in the space. If we just kind of focus on Shopify, there would be other competitors that might undercut us or whatever the case may be. So we always want to be one step ahead instead of chasing the person in front of us.
Yeah, and what kind of businesses work best for y'all's platform? Is it kind of the bigger spenders? Is it somebody just kind of getting started out? What's your kind of sweet spot there?
Um, it's a great question, and I think it's weird because I think that like if you talk about numbers and you say, oh, like who feels the impact the most, right? If I said, oh, one of our stores recovers $5 million a year, which is true, but that brand might be doing 100 million a year. Yeah, $5 million added is a huge amount of money. But like, does that brand owner feel that the same way that someone who's making like, $5,000 a month or even only $1,000 a month is, and then all of a sudden they use our app and they add, $200 a month more? That's the difference between like maybe reinvesting in an ad campaign or doubling down on a product or a brand or an idea because like you just you needed to see some return. And so it's always expensive. I mean, Facebook's getting more and more expensive, right? So I think the smaller brands actually feel the impact the most, which is where what we want to do is help brands and business owners recover more sales, right? But in terms of numbers, obviously bigger volume stores make the most money. But I think that'd be a question for the brand owners specifically, not so much myself, because I'd rather help a small brand, get started from a personal perspective. But if you're asking me who makes us the most money, then I obviously want the big brands. But like, do I want one or the other? No, I mean, I want both and all the ones in between.
I love that. Yeah. So, I mean, there's not really a one size fits all. And I think that's super nifty how you can, impact smaller businesses to where it's a lot larger, but wow, this is super legit versus somebody's doing 100 million and, gets 5 million to where it's 5% versus, that's small business.
Get a pat on the back for optimizing. We don't like change the trajectory of their career or their business. But I do think that they're like to hit on that. I think customers that are enterprise scale that like, if you have a team of customer service agents or a customer experience team that's full time and you have enough resources to manage SMS as a channel with your own texting, your own team, then you probably outgrew us, right? We're not fit necessarily for enterprise. That's not to say that might change in the future, but for now, since we're a managed service, meaning you download our app, you connect your store to our app, right? And then our texting agents do the messaging on your behalf. But bigger brands that have enough resources might not need that help, and so that's something that we're figuring out.
Ooh, I'm pumped for this one, man. So, while we got to know you a little bit more, we love to kind of dive into what's working really good for you at this kind of point in time. So, what is your rich ad, Dennis?
The rich ad, I guess, and I mean, we've been running this ad for over a year and a half without much change, right? We take the same ad, we've changed some colors, we might like change some icons, a few things, but once you find a winner, like it's very easy to make variations of that winner that to Facebook are new and unique, and also slightly different, so that you can, if an ad obviously has decay and dies, if there's a lot of negative comments or feedback, or just like over time, obviously you don't just see the same ad running for a really long time. But our best ad, I guess the rich ad, is essentially just a conversation screenshot of us having a conversation, one of our texting agents with a customer, and showing kind of how our product works in real time. And then just calling out the people, exactly who we who we want to talk to. Obviously, Facebook advertising policy is very sensitive, but so we say things like, we know that two of these things that these two things are true. Your store is on Shopify and you want more sales. Well, like, we're just saying that if those things are true to you, then you're probably going to resonate with the ad and you're probably going to click. And then if you see the image, it's got a Shopify icon and it's got, a conversation and some dollar signs. And like all of a sudden we've probably had 4,000 or 5,000 stores sign up from that single ad alone.
Man, is it a static image of y'all talking?
Static image, yep.
Yeah, man. I remember video used to be king, but this year, the last for 6 months, static images are just outperforming videos in fucking most accounts, it seems like.
Yeah, we have one video that was a UGC. I really like this ad. I mean, this would be my rich ad if the other one wasn't still the winner. It'd be like the runner up. But TikTok format which is like a specific type of like meme. It's like I took a screenshot. It was actually a video of me scrolling my homepage, the landing page of liverecover.com. And then I had my face in front of it and I was talking about our business. So that I don't know exactly what I said, but I said like, hey, are you on Shopify and do you want more sales? Well, you should swipe up because without a credit card, you don't need a credit card to start, and we'll give you $500 in recovered sales for free. And while you're listening to me talk, you're seeing the like value prop of the website scrolling behind me. And that is a video ad, but it almost primes the customer to know what to expect on the landing page because you're actually showing them the website while they're watching you and listening to you talk. Obviously, that ad format might not be able to work for everyone because it requires you to be a little bit comfortable on camera and maybe a little bit like impromptu in terms of what you're going to say. Like I didn't, try to write something down or read off of a script. Like we're talking about a 15-second DIY ad here, but that ad cost me $0. And so did the other one. Right. So I think we've spent $0 on creative for our ads in 30 months. And we've spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars on paid ads on Facebook since we launched.
When it comes to the return of these ads, are they pretty solid there? Is it, what kind of metrics are you looking at, if you can share?
Yeah. So for us, it's different it's a little harder for us because we're a SaaS business and we have a free trial. So like when someone signs up, of course, we know certain things about them. We do something called lead scoring. So we want to know like, okay, depending on what plan you're on for Shopify or depending on how many sales you've had in the last 7 days, 30 days, or depending on your Quantcast score, or depending on all these data points, we measure the stores and we give them a lead score and we pass that information back, that value back to Facebook. And so it's never really like we know exactly how much the ROI is going to be. We just back into what's the cost per lead, what's the cost per completed registration, and then what's the cost per billing activation. Those are the main metrics we look at. I mean, of course, like smaller things like, landing page click-through rate and conversion rate from the homepage and Facebook to homepage and things like that. But for us, it's really, really the measurement, the high level measurement really is just cost per registration. Like how much does it cost to get someone in the door, not just the email, but signed up, connected the app and basically ready to start their trial.
How many people go from trial to actually paying you? Have you tried any different ways to try and boost that little conversion rate there, or is that pretty stagnant?
When we started out, we were actually performance based only, so we didn't have any monthly fees, and that made it really hard to determine how much a potential customer might be worth. Because if they weren't willing to pay our subscription fee of $49 a month or $99 a month, then it was like, damn, we might just be in a big hole, and we didn't know what someone was worth at the minimum. But if I spend let's say I spent $100, or let's just say I spent $200 to acquire you as a customer, and I know you're going to activate the $100 a month plan, and the LTV data shows that you stay for 12 months. Well, then obviously, like I just made a 6x. My time to break even is 2 months, which means I don't probably have to raise money or use any kind of external financing because I can float 2 months. So all those numbers just, it depends on your business and what your LTV is and like average revenue per user per month and things like that. But for us, Facebook is profitable-ish, but also just to be like top of mind and like the market's huge. So I think for us, we've only scratched the surface. We have a couple thousand paying monthly customers, and we want that to be in the tens of thousands of monthly paying customers. So we have a long way to go.
Man, I'm loving this, to be honest. This is exciting.
This episode is brought to you by Funnel Dash's Ad Card, the only charge card exclusively for your digital ad spend. And if you're an advertiser spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on ads, and you're in e-commerce, and you're looking for more capital or credit to scale, then you're probably familiar with solutions like Shopify Capital, Brex, and Clearbank. The problem with these solutions is the cost of capital is expensive, and they take a percentage of your revenue. One of the beauties with AdCard, when you combine it with one of our in-network, of our 5,000 in-network agency partners, you have the opportunity to qualify for free ad capital funding, where we'll load up your ad card with an additional $50,000 all the way up to $1 million of additional capital to deploy on platforms like Facebook, Google, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, and more. So if that's you, if you're in e-commerce spending a ton on ads and you're looking for a way to decrease the cost of capital, check out AdCard. We'll get back to the show.
That's pretty freaking sick to hear. Now, while that is the rich ad of the segment, I kind of want to hear about something that could have crashed and burned. So what is your poor ad?
I don't know if it was a specific ad, like it wasn't a Facebook ad, that's for sure. But and maybe this isn't the place to say it, but I don't have any other examples. So for us, the worst place that we've had a poor ad was on podcast ads, actually.
Really?
Yeah, we tried sponsoring all these other podcasts that were like e-commerce and Shopify focused and SEO focused and this and that. And we spent, it wasn't like it sunk the business or it hurt us that, like drastically, but we spent 5 to 10 grand and basically got 0 installs. And so we're like, okay, I'm bitter about podcast ads. I'm not reinvesting in that because I know with Facebook that that's not possible because of the, past traction and the current traction that we have. So yeah, I would say for me and us, podcast ads have been a huge flop. And we were expecting like, oh, we can't wait for this podcast to drop. It's going to be flying in. We're like 2 clicks on the Bitly on UTM parameters, 2 visits to Google Analytics. We're like 2 visits, no installs. Even 1 install on 2 visits, I would have been surprised at the 50% install rate or conversion rate. But
and some of these podcast placements, they aren't freaking cheap. So I mean,
no,
do they share with you the numbers out of curiosity? We don't even do this. So I'm kind of like, do they gauge how you get the average users per episode?
They'll tell you, hey, we get 3,000 downloads per episode, and that's great if you get 3,000 downloads, but how many people actually listen to them and how many are downloaded automatically because of some app that you use that like queues up the recent ones that you're following? So like download rate versus listening completion time is not the same, and we didn't get that information.
Man, because it's feel like 2020 was the year of the podcast for sure. So I'm kind of curious how people continue to monetize them and actually possibly make these placements actually work. Because I don't think I've ever bought anything from a podcast. I mean, I just like to chill and not buy anything when I'm listening for the most part.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much. That's me too. I think the only time I can think of that I may have bought something or at least checked it out was like a Tim Ferriss podcast back in the day, or maybe like a Joe Rogan podcast. But for the most part, not for me.
Yeah.
Poor ad.
Oh yeah, and now that you bring up Joe Rogan, I think I have actually bought some brain juice. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like the freaking whatever brain stuff, Alpha Brain or whatever.
Yep, Alpha Brain.
That's some good stuff. It's all right. I can't do it every day, but hey, it is what it is. Well, snap. That's quite a poor ad story. A podcast placement that didn't generate 1 install. Okay, that's solid there. So for the final segment, we love to kind of dive in, kind of meet the crossroads of marketing and the financial side of things. So what's a good financial tip based off your expertise that you can kind of provide for the audience here?
I think depending on like where you are in your life, like a lot of people want to make money, and a lot of people also are like find themselves above opportunities sometimes mentally, right? Like I have some friends who aren't maybe in the best financial situation, but they also won't go do common jobs. And I'm not saying you need to go work at a store or go do something like basic, but like there are so many creative ways to make money online or in person. And I think that I don't know. I just think that you shouldn't be above any opportunities. And so even, our business is 7-figure a year profitable business. But I still think that my co-founder and probably anybody on our team and myself are still doing side hustles and not full time to the point of getting distracted. But it's like, I don't know. I think I don't think anybody should be above doing any type of work. And so I think until you are where you are, like where you want to be financially, there should be no like real excuse. And so as a financial tip, I would just say like there's so many creative ways to make money. And if you want to make money, obviously there are better things to focus on, not just make money, right? Like that money is a byproduct of doing things with passion and doing them well and helping solve problems. But making money is not that hard. Just don't be above an opportunity, I guess.
Ooh, I love that. And I mean, the year of the COVID's perfect for that. Everybody's out of work. They can find new things to do. You can find anything on freaking YouTube these days to kind of at least get the basics down. And then you can, hire somebody to do some coaching there. So, I mean, I think
people with limes, the scooters, like birds and limes, like in my neighborhood, they're polluted and littered everywhere. And I use them sometimes and drive them. But I mean, you can make $5 per scooter to charge them overnight.
Really?
And so like, yeah, they pay you $5 to $6 depending on where they are to charge them. And to charge one overnight, you just plug it in and then it's charged. And so like there are people who have trucks that pick up like 50 of them and they make $250 every night overnight by charging the limes. And the cost to charge them is like less than 10 to 15 cents per charge. So like, yeah, this means Lime doesn't have to do any work. But like, if you said, hey, would you go charge Limes for an extra $35 a day? Most people would be like, no, are you kidding me? Why would I do that? And I'm like, well, $35 a day is $1,000 a month. And if another $1,000 or $12,000 a year is important to you, then why wouldn't you do it? That's just like dumb. That's the same kind of thing I'm talking about. Like, don't be above an opportunity. So I have, it's like a mom. You don't have to do a lot of work. It's not something that's hard. You just have to go out and look for it. So imagine if you're doing that before you go to bed, can commit to finding 10 scooters in your neighborhood, right? They charge overnight and you have to drop them off in the morning. Okay. Maybe the place that you drop them off is coincidentally really close to your coffee shop in the morning. So now it's not out of your way. You're actually getting paid $50 every day to go get a cup of coffee. And you know what I mean? There's just a lot of ways to like make money. And I think a lot of people ignore that because they're waiting for something shiny and sexy, like to be a cool influencer or to have this happen or XYZ happen. And it's like, that's not always the case. Things don't come to you, you go to them.
So you bring up, the super sexy, shiny things. And I know in this industry, I'm notorious of it, shiny object syndrome. I don't know if this is something you deal with at all. It could not be, it could be, but how do you kind of, stay aligned with what your actual goals are to kind of, really not fall into the traps of shiny object syndrome where, you're spending more time learning something versus, fine tuning a special craft?
Yeah. I mean, I've been dealing with that because I have ADD and I get attracted to things and I like the beginning process of building and like actually building. I wouldn't say generally I've been someone who's the best at scaling, and like scaling might be different for everybody. For me, scaling is like at least $10 million a year, hopefully more. Right. So for me, I've always gotten to like, a couple million a year. And then it's like, oh, new idea, new project, new this. And then I'm like, wait, I have 6 projects going on. All I really need to do is one and go really deep on it. Because once you do that for long enough and you're like focus on it and you're actually passionate about it, right? You're doing things for the right reasons, probably going to have success. And after you've done that, then you can start going like wide instead of deep, because now you don't have to be involved with 15 projects. You can invest in 14 projects that you love while still going deep on the one that you are involved in most, right? So I've definitely been dealing with this since I was probably a kid. Now that I'm focused on live recover as my main business, yeah, I have like a small side hustle, but it's not something that distracts me from my business. It's still my core project. And there's nothing else. If someone said, what do you do? I would say I run a business called Live Recover. I wouldn't even mention anything else. But yeah, I mean, it's, your interest is compounded for sure when you focus on one thing over time. And then you look back and you're like, oh shit, okay, that's why people focus on one thing. No one's the best at everything. If they said that they're lying to you.
Oh yeah. And I want to give a special shout out to my Adderall prescription for this podcast for this reason, but yeah, I know that's a real thing in these times. But man, this has been an absolute blast. Give everybody an idea. How can we support you? Any cool projects kind of coming up in the mix?
Yeah, I mean, if you run an e-commerce business, whether it's on Shopify or maybe you use Sticky.io, which I think was Connective CRM or WooCommerce, Magento, Cratejoy, you name it. If you want to recover carts over text message, we'd love to chat with you. Otherwise, if you ever want to just talk e-commerce paid media, holler at me on Twitter, Dennis Hegstad.
There we go. Y'all know how to find me.
Yes, sir.
Well, Dennis, my man, we got to link up in Austin soon one of these days and get some barbecue or margaritas or queso or something, man.
Yep, I'm down with that.
Hell yeah. But once again, man, thanks for jumping on this. I absolutely loved it.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it was a blast. Sorry it took so long, and hopefully barbecue and beer soon.
Hell yeah. All right, later, man.
See ya.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Rich Ad Poor Ad podcast. If you're like me and listen to podcasts on the go ahead and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and richadpoorad.com/podcast. And if you absolutely love the show, go ahead and leave a review and a comment, share with a friend. If you do, take a copy, screenshot of it, email me, Zach@funneldash.com, show me you left a review, and I'll give you a free copy of the Rich Ad Poor Ad book. To learn more about the book, go to richadpoorad.com. To leave a review, go to richadpoorad.com/review. Thanks again.